You're listening to English with Monty, the podcast about the English language.
Talking about narrative tenses, tenses we use to talk about past events. Hello there and welcome to English with Monty. We're on to episode number 39 and we're going to talk about an interesting subject. Today I have Gideon. Hi Gideon.
Hi John, how are you today?
I am very well. I'm very well. We're going to talk about narrative tenses.
Oh, tell me more.
Tell me more. Do you know about narrative tenses? Like a few minutes ago, you seemed a bit unsure.
Well, I guess narrative tenses are just tenses that tell a story. Something like that?
Yeah, that would be correct. Narrative tense is about telling a story. So I guess the idea of narrative is it's linked to telling a story, isn't it, really?
Mm-hmm.
That talks about which four tenses primarily. Do you know?
Which four tenses? Oh, is that a question? That's a typical question. To tell a narrative?
Yes.
Well, let me think about it. If I'm telling you something, I'll use past simple. I was walking down the street and I saw a man, so that would be the past simple and the past continuous. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah. So the past simple and the past continuous would be used as narrative tenses. And then you have two other ones that are typically used as narrative tenses.
So the man had been drinking heavily.
Mm-hmm.
Is that past perfect continuous?
That's correct.
And I'm guessing, let me think, that he told me that he had climbed a mountain. So that's past perfect?
That is. That was good.
There might be more. I just off the top of my head.
Well, I think that's about right. So we've got past simple, past continuous, past perfect continuous.
Mm-hmm.
And I suppose the idea, as we've just said, it's more to tell a story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Describe past events or personal anecdotes as well. So that's really the main ways that we would use them, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, well, so we try and break them down because what I want to do is maybe break them down in terms of each individual tense. And I think it's going to be quite easy, I guess, with past simple, past continuous. But I think past perfect and past perfect continuous are more difficult, wouldn't you say?
Just require a little bit more practice. A little bit more practice, but okay. It's not too difficult.
It's not too difficult, is it? Would you say it's fair to say with past perfect and past perfect continuous, it's not something we use that much in spoken English? Is that fair to say?
I'm not sure because the past perfect you do use it in spoken English, don't you? So I didn't know that you had done this. So that's a very common expression in spoken English. Yes, so when you're reporting an event, saying you didn't know something or you did know something, then you could use a past perfect when there are two pasts involved. Maybe it will become clearer when we do some examples.
Let's maybe come back to that one. So let's park that somewhere and then focus first of all on the past simple. So I guess the past simple, we tend to talk about consecutive actions in the past, don't we? And it's really, I guess, main events in the story, something like that.
Yeah, that's right. He did this and then he did that. He was born then and then he grew up to be a very important person. And then this happened and then he was shot and then he was died and then...
Then he was died. Then he died, yeah.
Then he died and then they buried him.
That's a good story. I like that story. It's one of your best anecdotes, that, isn't it?
The basic sort of landmarks of somebody's life. Use the past simple, wouldn't you?
Yes, we would. I mean, there's quite a good example on the BBC Learning website, which we're having a quick look at the moment. Nelson Mandela was born in 1918. He became the first Black president of South Africa. He spent 27 years in prison in his battle against the system of apartheid. Obviously, you've got three separate sentences there, all with the past simple. As you say, it's something that started and finished in the past. So it's a series of events in someone's life. But obviously, yeah, it doesn't have to be a series of events. in your life on a long-term scale. It could be like we arrived at the airport and checked in, something like that. Something very simple as well. What about past continuous? How would we use past continuous?
You have the facts, the factual elements of the past simple, and then some sort of background information. You could use a past continuous. So, for example, John is going to give a good example. I've only had 3 cups of coffee today. I need another one. You start. I'll join in. Drinking coffee. That's a good example.
Yeah, you were drinking coffee. Go on.
The man entered when I was drinking coffee.
Okay, that's great. So it was an action you were doing at the moment that the man entered the room, right?
Yeah. I should give some female examples. I'm saying the man, and she shot me with 45 caliber rifle. Is that right? And I was screaming in pain.
You're giving some quite dark examples. You've been shot twice in the space of 5 minutes. I'm a bit worried about this.
I don't know. Maybe with storytelling, often they involve shooting and other violent things happening, especially if you watch like American shit series.
That's what you've been doing recently, by the sounds of it. I guess like detective novels would be the key with these things as well, though, isn't it? Like telling a story. I'm sure we've spoken about this idea before, but detective novels obviously typically recounting the story, aren't they? So often these narrative tenses are part of these kind of stories, aren't they?
Yeah, sure.
Reading, again, we always talk about reading, but if you're reading about recounting stories in the past, then this is probably the most common way you're going to encounter narrative tenses, unless you're a big storyteller as a person.
The past continuous so interrupts another event, doesn't it? No, the other way around. The past simple interrupts the past continuous. Sorry, I got the wrong way around, haven't I? I was walking down the street when I heard somebody call my name. Background information is the past continuous, and then the interruption is the past simple.
Exactly. So somebody called your name interrupts the fact that you were walking. Because your example with being shot and then screaming, I don't think it quite
doesn't work.
No.
Okay, think of another one.
I don't know. You were shot while you were drinking coffee.
Because I was drinking coffee. Yeah, you're drinking my coffee.
She shot you because you were drinking her coffee, because you stole it from her, which is rather unpleasant. Some would say dastardly.
Yeah.
I suppose with past continuous as well, we can combine the two together, can't we? I think this is still within the narrative tense idea. I was drinking coffee while you were reading a book. 2
actions happening at the same time.
Simultaneous actions in the past. And then nothing has to necessarily interrupt things in that situation, does it?
No.
Just 2 actions going at that same moment at the same time.
I was sitting down, drinking my coffee, minding my own business when the telephone rang, and it was John bugging me to do another podcast.
Somebody has to make sure you keep your eye on the prize.
It was just an example. Okay. I gave 3 examples of the past continuous, 3 parallel actions happening at the same time, and then you interrupt.
I'm sorry about
your phone call,
by the way. I don't mean to bug you.
Oh no, it's John again. Oh, shall I answer? Oh, I'll report to spam. Won't call me again. Do you have that on your phone now?
Report to spam.
It keeps coming up. It tells you when it's spam now. That's really useful.
It's like Gideon's been put in my spam folder. It's like, that's where he deserves to go.
I haven't done that with you, John. Of course, I always answer your calls.
That's good.
But behave yourself, because otherwise...
otherwise, you're going in the spam folder.
You're going to be reported. And all the calls you make around the world, you'll be flagged as spam, you see.
Because of you.
Because of me. So, I don't want to answer this person.
Do you think 35 calls a day to you is too much?
Yeah, you should tone it down a little bit, perhaps, yes.
I thought it was perfectly acceptable. Maybe I'll change my ways. So, yeah, we've done past simple, past continuous. So we've combined those 2 together. They seem to work pretty well and pretty simply, or simplistically, shall we say? Is that correct? So moving on to the 2 ones which I think a lot of people will find difficult as narrative tenses and when to use them. But you say it's not too bad. So you're talking about the past perfect and past perfect continuous. I suppose we should talk about the form of both of them, first of all, grammatically. What would be the form of past perfect?
Past perfect, you need had and then past past participle. Is that right? So my grammar's like
You're doing really...
yeah, past. You need had and a past participle, don't you?
That's correct.
I had washed. I had eaten.
You were very convincing there. Yes, exactly. So had plus past participle, and the past participle, if you look at a verb table, which column is it? Is it the first, second, or third column?
Third.
It is the third. Yes, exactly. It's always had, isn't it? So obviously with the present perfect, you would change it in the third person to be has, but with the past perfect, it's always had, I had, she had, etc. She had eaten, for example. And then obviously, yeah, if it's a regular verb, the past participle is the same. So wash, washed, washed. And then obviously, if it's irregular, then not always, but usually the past participle is different from the simple past.
Yes. And the negative is hadn't. Of course, you could say had not, but usually hadn't.
It's usually hadn't, isn't it? I guess, because it sounds a bit more natural. I suppose if you said had not, it would be a bit stronger, wouldn't it? Well, you gave me an example at the start, but we're going to expand upon these ideas, try and give a few examples, I guess, in terms of the past perfect. Let's just focus on the past perfect simple, first of all.
Sure. So you need two past, don't you? You need an action and then something that happened before that action. For example, it was only then that I understood that John had won the medal. That's a terrible example. You're going to think of another one. I didn't know. I gave this example before, though. I don't want to repeat it, though. So after something I didn't know, I didn't know that you had won a gold medal at the Seoul Olympics.
I did. There's probably a couple of problems with that example. At the Seoul Olympics, I was 8.
Yeah, okay.
So that's one problem with it. Another problem is that I'm not that talented at sport. Okay. Even at the age of 8, I wasn't that talented at sport.
I don't know why Seoul Olympics just came to mind. I couldn't think of any other at the moment.
No, well, fair enough. I mean, it is an interesting example. Maybe it will help people remember me being 8 years old and winning the 100 meters, because that's clearly the gold medal that I won.
Or it could be the Seoul, Soul Olympics, like the Olympics of the soul, which are happening all the time. And
could be
soul, yes. And you're just so cool and you have so much soul. You're a soul man and you won a medal.
I'm kind of a very calming person, maybe therapeutic sessions. That sounds like a weird example, but thank you for that. And the example that the BBC website gives, which again is a bit morbid, I guess, again, it's probably linked with detective novels. I quickly realized that the storm the previous night had washed up the body.
Again, we're on dead bodies. People were getting shot, or people getting murdered, or people drowning.
Curious,
I suspect that he had been murdered before he was thrown into the ocean.
Yes. Then there you're using the past perfect passive there.
Oh, was that? Yes, so it was.
That can be part of the mix, I guess. But,
it's clear that they had shot him before they threw his body into the sea.
For drinking his neighbour's coffee.
Yeah. It's clear that they had shot him before.
Yeah.
So that happens before. Something else happens. They threw his body in the sea. It's a good example, isn't it, John?
It's an excellent example. It's much better than your previous example.
Yeah, I was struggling. It's true.
The key point is, though, because you use I don't know, and then with this example, we use realized. I think in spoken English, we would often use it in those situations, isn't it? I don't know. And then you talk about something connected.
Yeah, sure.
Or I didn't know. Sorry, it should be I didn't know, isn't it? Rather than I don't know. I didn't know.
Or another classic example is after he or she told me that, and then you usually put a past perfect. She told me that she had seen the Queen the day before she died. Okay, she told me that she had seen.
Is that talking about our current Prime Minister?
By the time this podcast goes out, you mean the former Prime Minister?
Exactly. I think within the space of a few weeks, she's going to disappear. Maybe.
Yeah.
Let's see. Well, that's another topic, isn't it?
Yes.
So.
Yes. And welcome back, Boris.
We missed you.
Yeah.
No, genuinely, we did. Strangely, nobody expected to see that one.
Monty is based in London, and we offer individual lessons and conversation group classes in the centre by Tottenham Court Road. Come and join us. You can access the times and place to meet through Meetup at the following web address. So that's meetup.com/Monty-English-Conversation. See you there.
Moving on, I realized I didn't know, or she told me, or they told me, or something like that. So those are all nice examples when we talk about it in terms of speaking.
I just think we should maybe make it clear that the grammar that I've given is completely correct. She told me that she had seen the Queen, but on the streets, some people might say she told me she saw the Queen.
Yeah,
We're grammar teachers. We're never going to say that. If you've got a good level of education, you probably won't say that, but you will hear it. So we have to accept that that's an alternative way of saying it, but not strictly correct.
exactly.
You agree with me, don't you? You agree with me?
Of course, yeah. I mean, obviously, the way people speak can be a bit different from exactly how the grammar should be, right? That does exist. That does happen, doesn't it? As a non-native speaker, you may hear that, but it doesn't mean that it's completely correct grammatically.
But no, use the past perfect, children.
Indeed, it needs to be used. So the past perfect continuous.
Yeah, this is a nice one. It explains why something happened. So, for example, her hair was wet because it had been raining. Why was her hair wet? Oh, because it had been raining. Why was he murdered? He was murdered because he had been drinking her coffee.
Exactly. You talk about a longer continuous action that happens before the main event happened.
You could say it like that. Yes, okay, fair enough.
That's
You
correct.
go, yeah, you explain the,
That's
side.
correct, isn't it? That's
Yeah.
how we would say it, because
Yes.
we have to talk about a chunk of time that happened before the main event means that you're going to have to use the past perfect continuous leading up to that main event.
Mhm.
All of it obviously happened in the past. We had been flying for about 2 hours when the captain told us to fasten our seatbelts. There's going to be turbulence or whatever. So it's like saying, okay, we started that event when we took off in the plane, and then for 2 hours we've been doing that. And then the past interruption of fastening our seatbelts because we're entering turbulence. So obviously we had been flying is talking about that action until the main event.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of it, isn't it? Is there anything else you want to add?
Why did you kill Perkins?
How did you know I killed Perkins?
Because we bugged your apartment and we heard you talking about it with Johnson.
What do you want me to say?
I killed Perkins because he had been taka 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 taka.
Ah, okay. Yeah, I killed Perkins because he had been annoying me about doing a podcast. So that's why I killed him.
And here's the police now coming to arrest you. Did you hear?
I can hear a little bit,
Yeah.
not completely. I've got another example here, actually, when we should use the past perfect simple or the continuous.
Okay.
So I've got two different examples. So she was crying because she had been reading a very sad book. She didn't want to see the film because she'd read the book. The past perfect continuous emphasizes the continuation of the activity.
Mm-hmm.
In this case, meaning she had been reading the book, she'd been reading the book. Try and use the contraction. And the past perfect simple emphasizes the completion of an activity.
Oh, okay. Yes, fair enough.
Does that work?
Yeah, I guess so. Yes, that's right.
It sounds pretty good, doesn't it? It sounds as if we know what we're talking about when I say stuff like that.
I didn't want coffee because I had already drank one earlier on. He was very nervous because he had been drinking coffee. I'm not sure I'm giving great examples today. I think I need to go back to bed and get up again.
They seem very coffee related or very shooting related.
Well, I've got a coffee in front of me. I haven't got a gun in front of me, I should say.
Well, but your neighbor has, apparently. It's not necessarily you.
My neighbor drilled into my apartment. Did I tell you that?
Is this relevant to what we're talking about?
Well, I'm telling a story.
All right, go on then.
So he was putting up some shelves.
Your neighbor is not a woman.
It's
It's
a
a
true
man.
story. Well, him and his wife, he was putting up some shelves and was drilling into the wall, and the drill came right through into our apartment. There was a hole, and he could see into our apartment. It was like being in, I don't know, East Germany in the Stasi is spying on you.
How bizarre.
Oh yeah. And I didn't know that. I didn't know about it because the hole was, by coincidence, in between some books on our bookshelf as well. So he could see into the apartment, but I didn't know he'd done that. But he wrote a letter. Who wrote letters? But he actually wrote a letter saying, "I'm very sorry."
We can hear the police now. Are they coming to collect him
They're coming to arrest him
for spying on you?
Yeah. Trying to get in some tenses there. I had been sitting at home minding my own business when the neighbor drilled a hole into my apartment.
Yeah, I think it's incredible for the listeners how often sirens go past your window. It's unbelievable, isn't it?
It's true. It's every 30 seconds.
It is.
I live on a main road.
It's
Like in front of a main road here.
Incredible how often they go past.
Yeah, how much crime there is. Is it quite police? Or is it, I always confuse which is the police siren, which is the ambulance siren.
Are they different? They could be.
I don't know.
Anyway, we should probably...
I'll shoot somebody and then find out. Oh no, then we'll get both, won't we?
Well, that's true, yeah. Don't do that. You might cause some problems.
I haven't got a gun, just to let you know.
You're a peace-loving person.
But the story about my neighbor was true.
He was apologetic.
He was overly apologetic, I think because he's a lawyer and he thought I might sue him or something. Because he wrote this long apology and saying that everything will be repaired. We'll pay for any repair. Very, very, very polite about it, even more than you'd expect. I think he was scared I was going to sue him or shoot him. Or something like that, because lawyers are always like that. They're covering their bases.
And the hole's been fixed now.
The hole's been fixed, yeah. And he always calls me, I don't know if this is relevant, John. Maybe you should keep it in just for sort of background information, but he always calls me Monsieur. I don't know. It's a very French thing. They don't like to use the names so much until you've known them for 20 years. I'm his neighbor, for God's sake. Bonjour, monsieur. So just call me Gideon. I've only known you 6 months. They can't possibly take that step.
Too friendly. You need to invite him over more often, then he might call you Gideon. I don't know if you've got the other link I sent you. We're going to do a mini test.
Is there another one?
There is another one. I sent you 2. It's just a very mini test. It's like 5 questions.
You're going to test me. You think I don't know the answer? John, I've been doing this for years.
We'll combine it. It's not necessarily...
Oh, it's not for me. Okay, I got you now.
Okay, so what we'll do is we're going to do a bit of a test. We'll alternate it because I don't want to put too much pressure on you, but I'm going to stack it in my favor. I'm only going to answer 2 of them. You're going to answer 3.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm nervous now.
You're the expert, so that's why I've done it. Do you want to go with the first one?
Oh, yeah, first one. I told John not to drive because he A, drank, B, was drinking, C, had drunk, D, had been drinking. What do you think, listeners? I would say D, had been drinking.
D, okay, yes. So why are you using the past perfect continuous in this case?
Well, as I said, explain why something is happening or not happening. Why should John not drive? Because he had been drinking. There's probably another way to explain it. You can go ahead.
That's correct, though, isn't it? It's kind of a longer continuous action which was interrupted by the main event.
And it's also a longer continuous action interrupted by a main event.
Yeah, yeah.
Like my explanation?
Excellent. Yeah, it's good. I'd just like to emphasize to listeners that it's not me when it says John.
This one has an H. You don't have an H, do you, John? You're H-less. And you get very angry when people put an H in your name.
I do. I get extremely angry. That's another story, isn't it? Okay, I'll do this one. Why did you change the channel? I, A, watched that movie. B, was watching that movie. C, had watched that movie. Or D, had been watching.
So this one would be B. I was watching that movie.
That's right.
This is an activity, an action that I was doing at that moment when you change the channel.
Exactly.
I think that's quite clear, isn't it? I don't think we really need to explain that one too much. Next one.
When I out of the shower, the lights da. So A, when I got out of the shower, the lights were getting off. B, when I had got out of the shower, the lights were getting off. C, when I was getting out of the shower, the lights went off. And D, when I had been getting out of the shower, the lights had got off. Difficult to read all that.
Yeah, a lot of that doesn't really make much sense, does
I
it?
think C is correct, though. When I was getting out of the shower, so that's the background information, and then something happened, something interrupted it. When I was getting out of the shower, the lights went off. Maybe you should explain the phrasal verb to go off.
In this case, because I guess there's a couple of ways of using it, isn't it? So a few ways of using it, isn't it? If you say, in this case, the lights went off, it means that they were no longer shining. They are no longer working, right? I guess in that case, there's like a timer and I don't know, you're staying in a youth hostel or whatever. And then maybe there's a timer to save electricity. As soon as you were getting out, they went off and you were like, oh dear. And then maybe you have to wave your arms in the air to put it back on again, maybe.
So it can be stop working, went off, stopped to function.
Stop functioning in this case, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is a bit confusing, isn't it? Because
The
also,
bomb went off means start to function.
bomb went off, which means it's not really
It exploded. It exploded. Yes. An alarm went off as well. It started ringing.
Exactly. I suppose the other way you could use it is the food went off, as in it's gone rotten, right?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So that's another way. I'm a bit confused why they're using get a lot here. I don't know why they've used get off. When would you use get off? I mean, that's really like with the bus, isn't it? Public transport.
Get off the bus. But get out of the shower will be right, though.
Get out of the shower is correct.
When I got out of the shower, yes. Because exit the shower.
Exactly. Yeah, we wouldn't say exit the shower, would we? That's a bit too...
No, it's far too formal when you get out of the shower.
With my flatmate at the moment, because I'm in Italy at the moment, I'm trying to help him with get. He's definitely getting better.
Good.
It's quite tricky though, get, isn't it?
You should point him towards this podcast.
I have. He's started listening to it.
Oh, okay.
He's improving. He's using get much better. He's saying to instead of for in front of a verb, which is good news now. So happy about that. He's making progress.
Nice.
Next one. When I saw Clara, I realized she, A, didn't change, B, wasn't changing, C, hadn't changed, or D, hadn't been changing. And then the end of the sentence is much in all those years. So when I saw Clara, so we're using I realized, so therefore, listeners, what is it? Correct. There was a huge chorus, wasn't there, of everybody saying hadn't changed. She hadn't changed much in all those years.
Reporting about a previous event.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Last one for you.
Okay. When he entered the room, somebody, A, hit him in the head, B, was hitting him in the head, C, had hit him in the head, D, had been hitting him in the head. Wouldn't it be on the head?
In or on, I guess it depends on the situation, doesn't it? Because if you hit somebody in the head, it's like with a punch, isn't it?
Or violent, yeah, that's true.
More with a punch, whereas...
Yeah, it fell on my head.
It's on the top, isn't it?
Could say both, but I think, okay, fair enough. Past simple. When he entered the room, somebody... Well, no, hold on. Who's hitting whom? When he entered the room, somebody hit him, yes, hit him in the head.
Yeah, that's correct.
If there's another person, could be he entered the room and he witnessed that someone else was hitting. No, forget it. Just delete that part, John. Just delete it. I'm getting really confused. Just say hit.
Yeah, well, it's got to be hit, hasn't it? Because it's consecutive, right? He entered and then something else happened, which somebody hit him in the head.
Yeah, exactly. It's a sequence of events, past and then other past.
Yeah, it's another violent episode again. It's disturbing.
Yeah, it is a lot of violence. You should get to like an 18 certificate, this podcast. So we got them all right in the end, didn't we? Or is there more? Or that's it?
No, well, that's it. We can go on to the next page, but I think that's probably good to finish with 5. I think 5 is a reasonable thing. Hopefully everybody's pretty clear about narrative tenses and how we're going to use them, how to write an effective detective or murder mystery novel. Tell us a bit more about you, Gideon.
My name's Gideon. I also have a YouTube channel. It's called Let Them Talk TV. And you should definitely check it out because there's lots of fantastic videos about, I don't know, stuff, about learning English, about history of English language, and much, much more.
Have you done anything on narrative tenses?
I think so. I never used the term narrative tenses before. I know what you mean, yeah. I just used tenses. Maybe I should do one.
Past simple, past continuous, past perfect continuous. Right, everybody's amazing at that now. We've done our job and I think we can both retire.
Okay. All right. As of now, I'm retiring.
Just this very moment. That's it. It's all done and dusted.
To get an apartment on the beach and, I don't know,
Yeah,
while away my days reading
Tahiti.
Agatha Christie or whatever.
Yeah, Tahiti.
Tahiti.
Yeah, I think you should live there.
Try to get rid of me as far away as possible.
So I can come and visit.
Oh, okay. Okay, fair enough.
One of my students the other day that told me, which I thought was really curious. I think this is true. You know, when they have the Olympic Games in Paris next year,
Yeah.
they're doing the surfing event in Tahiti.
Oh, really? Ah, because it's a French colony. I shouldn't say colony. That's not the right word, is it? But it's French.
Isn't that curious, though? Why aren't they doing it in Bordeaux or somewhere like that? Somewhere where there's surf in the south of France. I thought that was very curious that they were doing it.
I think they want to make the point that France isn't just the European part. There's Marthe France and that. You have French Guyana and Guadeloupe, and you have these islands, New Caledonia and things like that. And I think that that's the point they're trying to make. And it's the Olympics for all of France, not just the little hexagon in the west of Europe.
We'll be doing surfing in the Falklands next time we have.
That's true, actually. They could have done, there's 1 or 2 British places abroad, aren't there?
Kind of a bit of a tangent. I guess we should probably finish now. Thanks for joining me, Gideon.
Anytime.
Very insightful. And thank you for joining us, listeners. You've been listening to English with Monty. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave me a donation online via our website. Monty is a small independent company and I do all the editing myself. I would suggest £2.50 to buy me a coffee or £5 for a beer. montyenglish.co.uk. Then just click on the podcast button at the top. You can donate here. Thank you. I appreciate it.